Hi, everyone. I am, as MK mentioned, going to just do a brief introduction to who I am first, since probably many of you have never heard of me. Um, and I'll just have this little drawing that I made of a picture my cousin took of me at Christmas, where I look incredibly happy and thrilled to be there. I am appreciative of everyone who came out today. I know there was another drawing together yesterday. I was there. It was great. And I'll just briefly tell you a bit about who I am and then a little bit of background for what we're going to do. And just before we start, so you know, the materials you'll need today are just a couple pieces of paper. And the main thing is two drawing implements. So it doesn't matter what it is, pens, pencils, crayons, whatever. But we'll use both of those implements at the same time at some point for the warm-up. So if you could have two available and then two pieces of paper, one for the warm-up and one for the workshop part of it, the practice, the redo comic. Okay, so as the email you got said, in addition to being part of the graphic medicine community, I'm also I'm an avid aspiring comics maker and reader, and I'm a writing professor in the English department at West Virginia University. And I started and now coordinate a medical humanities minor there for the College of Arts and Sciences. And I mainly teach health communication and other writing and rhetoric classes, into which I regularly incorporate drawing and zine making ever since my very first graphic medicine conference years ago at Johns Hopkins. Mita Mahalo, I think, taught a zine making workshop that I have just used every year since. I also do research as a part of my job, and I'm currently on a team with some doctors at WVU Medicine studying patient perceptions of empathy and pre-surgical communication. And I published extensively about the value of paying attention to what I call divergent pathographies, the so-called non-compliant behaviors and paths that patients and caregivers take. I talk about these as like desire lines, which is a landscape architecture thing. You know, the paths that people wear across green spaces and snow, for example. The kind of thing like captured in images like this one. This is a poet laureate of a tuberculosis sanatorium from the 1940s. Her name is Eula Sharp. And when she was discharged, she had her picture taken outside of the sanatorium next to this sign that says keep off the grass for her doctor. And on the back of it, she wrote, Dear Dr. Baker, this is the way I want you to remember me. And so, you know, I don't know anything about her actually. I tried to find out more information, but I love the idea that perhaps once again, in one final time, she's defying the rules of the sanatorium and wanted to make sure her doctor remembered her that way. So anyways, back to me. I've been drawing and reading comics since I was a kid, and my 10-year-old self would be pleased to know that I still draw and buy myself lots of cool art supplies. If you're interested in following along, I post as N of one on Instagram. They're just basically drawings and pictures of my dog, who we're going to talk a little bit about today. I'm also currently drawing for and co-editing two larger comics projects as a part of my job at the university. The first is a digital column connected to the academic journal called The Rhetoric of Health and Medicine. And the column is about semi-annual, brand new. And we're calling it Graphic RHM, which is Graphic Rhetoric of Health and Medicine. And it's basically comics drawn mostly by people who publish scholarship in that area, but also we have some people from other disciplines and from the graphic medicine community who have expressed interest and contributed comics. We have another issue coming out in January. And then the other thing that I'm working on is a book called Graphic Conversations that I'm co-editing and contributing to, and that'll hopefully be out next year. So the introduction to the redo comics that I'd like to give you to talk about this core practice in the workshop today has its roots in some art therapy practices and a few different psychotherapy modalities like EMDR, internal family systems, and trauma-informed therapies. And I think it might be thought of as a practice that is falls under the category of what Georgia Weber, who I follow and love on Instagram as well, and have done some of her workshops, drawing health. So it's a kind of practice that you can do that's not just about health, you know, it's for health. It can kind of help in those ways too. And I'm going to offer you two ways of doing this workshop, one more playful and the other perhaps a bit more emotional for some people if you choose that. Brief description of the actual practice. Redo Comics, what I'm referring to as Redo Comics, give you an opportunity to draw through a past experience and explore another way that experience might have unfolded. So if you choose to restory an experience that involves regret, this could be a practice that can take some of the pain out of a difficult memory and build hope and resiliency. If you choose an experience that isn't troubling for you, making this kind of comic might be more playful and give you a new way of being curious about and just reimagining a past event. A couple people in the comics community who've made comics that loosely align with this are Erin Fitzgerald, whose work explores the therapeutic impact of drawing responses to cartoons she's already drawn. So in a series of comics, this is the first of one of those that's been published in the Graphic RHM um, online column that I'm editing. She reconsiders the endings of comics she's made that depict scenarios she struggles with and rethinks them as she redraws them. And she calls them response cartoons. And she says they show a possibility for her and give her hope about how things might be different in the future. And then I also like to think of Elizabeth Trembley's Look Again as an interesting version of this because it explores how, if you're familiar with it, how chaotic, difficult, and powerful remembering and sharing a traumatic experience can be, and how the very aspects of trauma that make it so difficult, cognitively, emotionally, physically, are really important to processing our own truth and healing. So I first experienced the powerful effects of this practice of redo comics when my own therapist suggested I make one when I was expressing some discomfort about a bad caretaking day I had with my elderly disabled dog, Ruby. Ruby is an otherwise healthy 18-year-old dog who has required help to get around for the past couple of years due to a degenerative spinal issue resulting in the gradual paralysis of her rear legs. So I'm normally very patient and really enjoy creatively problem solving to keep her active and engaged and comfortable. And my wife and I have mostly enthusiastically spent a lot of time and energy managing her care. And most of the time, things go pretty smoothly. I have done a series of comics where things haven't gone so smoothly, or things I think about is, conversations with Ruby, like this just one where I'm thinking about like, why won't she take her delicious opioid meatballs, covered in treats? Or I hope she doesn't, how do I make sure she doesn't poop in the house and like fall over or something in it? How much can I let her walk without it hurting her? And then she's just thinking, when will I get more chicken? But one day, a few months into our increased caretaking role, I was alone with her and I had a lot of work to do and I was feeling less resilient and a little impatient. And she was asking to go out a lot and not taking her meds and throwing her pill across the room or dropping it in her water bowl, wanting to stop and sniff at the door before exiting the house and at various bushes in our yard, just like totally normal dog stuff, like reasonable. But what became a difficult memory for me was how I felt pretty impatient with her that day, and I acted impatient with her. And because she knew I drew, my therapist suggested that I make what I now call a redo comic, of course, and to restory those key moments in the day through comics. And so she suggested I pick key moments I regretted, draw them, and then draw companions to them that depicted what I wish I had done. And she proposed that doing this might both diffuse some of the pain of the original memory and give me easy access to behaviors I could choose to follow in the moment if I was at some point, again, in a similar situation and feeling less resilient, as was pretty likely to happen with her and has definitely turned out to happen a lot more. And I found the experience of both phases of the practice, drawing through some of the original moments and the restoring of them so powerful that I decided later that term to lead one of the classes I was teaching through the exercise as a part of a zine making session. And I've since practiced it with other groups, including researchers and teachers whose expertise is communication and health and medicine and who are learning to think about comics as a way of exploring that work for the first time. So now we're going to do a warm up. At this point, I'd like you to take out one of those pieces of paper and two of the drawing implements. It doesn't matter if they're pens or pencils or crayons. They can be colored or not colored. Feel free to just choose whatever's on hand, or if you have colors you feel like today resonate with you for some reason, it'll work either way. Just go with what you have on hand or what you feel like. And once you have the paper out, while I finish talking, I just want you to scribble. So you're just literally going to draw squiggles or circles or anything. It doesn't really matter. The key is just to do it with both hands. Okay, so as you start doing that, keep in mind you're not drawing anything in particular. You're just doing what's called bilateral scribbling. And bilateral scribbling, like the redo comics that we'll do in a minute, has its roots in some theories and modalities in psychotherapy. And the idea is that if you're engaging both sides of your brain, so you're just doing this while I'm talking, just kind of like over and over again, it can be kind of meditative. So let yourself go. And if you miss some of what I'm saying here, don't worry about it. I'll tell you when to stop. Because experiences that we have are stored in our bodies somatically and via all of our senses, our daily lives can be, as I'm sure you're familiar with, deeply impacted by memories that we carry with us. And we can be consciously or unconsciously reminded of them and sometimes triggered by things that remind us of past experiences. So in the context of memories related to caregiving experiences, which is what we'll explore today, this can be particularly challenging because we may need to continue to participate in related behaviors and contexts in order to fulfill our role as a caregiver or a parent or an aide or partner. And because both memory formation and art making are sensory somatic processes, the basic idea is that the physical and emotional practice of art making has healing power. And in fact, making any kinds of marks on paper, maybe finding shapes and colors to match feelings, can be both a physical and a sensory somatic process. So art therapists have been using bilateral scribbling like you're doing right now for nearly 80 years to connect different parts of our brain and can lead to healing and understanding that maybe we wouldn't otherwise have access to. And by the way, this can mean, if you do this on your own or with others, it can mean drawing with both hands, like I've asked you to do, or it could mean switching back and forth between hands. It can help you calm down. It can help you focus. It can help you feel more grounded. I've had students say that they're just going to do that when they're feeling stressed out because they kind of like doing it as a warm up. Following this practice of bilateral scribbling with any kind of neurosequential art practice like comic making that accounts for moments in past experience allows the paper or the screen to become a container that can hold some of our feelings and memories outside of our bodies. This is the idea of a container for this is important to a modality like EMDR, for example. And because we're going to account for the way something happened in the past, this practice also aligns with a concept found in EMDR called dual awareness, where we're sitting in the present while observing the past. Okay, so now that both sides of your brain are engaged and hopefully you're feeling a bit in the zone and ready to do some drawing, you can stop the bilateral scribbling and get one more piece of paper out, that second piece of paper. And this time you'll just need one pen or pencil or other drawing implement of choice. And we'll make some redo comics. So once you have that other piece of paper out, it'll work best if you orient the paper horizontally in landscape mode. I made these folds just to kind of help me keep my stuff like proportionate. You can do it however you want to and draw 6 boxes or 3 boxes in the top half, and we'll draw 3 in the bottom half next, but you can do the first 3 at the top first. And once you have that, you're going to think about, or as you're doing that, you're going to think about memory to draw, perhaps of a caregiving experience. You want to think of something else, that's fine too. And later you're going to redraw it. So the memory you pick, you'll first account for 3 different moments of it, and second, you'll redraw those moments. You don't have to choose a difficult memory. You can choose any experience that you want to. I'm suggesting that you perhaps think about a time when you gave or received care, but feel free to choose anything. It just needs to be a specific experience that happened on a particular day and time rather than an abstract one. So from my experience with Ruby, I drew these, and please excuse the unpolished nature of them. They're the actual drawings I did the first time I did this, and I did it very quickly, as you're going to do. So depending on these are the 3 moments that I chose. The first one was me rushing her out the door. She wears a harness that we use to help her walk, and I kind of yanked her through the doorway because she was pausing to sniff the air. The second one was me asking her and getting frustrated that she wasn't eating her meds meatballs, and she's just looking at them like, I don't want to. And then the third one I picked was I was leaving and I had to put a diaper on her so she wouldn't mess herself while we were gone. And she was wiggling around. And so I imagined that she was thinking, why are you touching me like that? Because I'm normally incredibly loving. And so this was very difficult for me to think, to have had this experience with her. But depending on the experience you choose, this could bring up some feelings of regret or sadness, but it could also just bring up feelings of wonder and curiosity if you don't choose something that was kind of painful for you. Either way, be gentle with yourself and allow yourself to move through the exercise in a way that feels right for you. The goal with the first set of drawings is simply to try to capture 3 specific moments or aspects of what happened that stand out to you. Like for me, trying to capture the impatience with Ruby in each of these moments. We're going to take about 7 or 8 minutes to draw through these 3 moments as they happened, 1 in each box. And don't worry, of course, if it's rough or sketchy, just try to capture the essence of the moment. And that's a little more than 2 minutes per image. So I'll give you some time checks, about 2 minutes through every 2 minutes so that you don't have to worry about pacing yourself. And I'll leave these instructions up so that you can see what you need to do. So if there are any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will give you some time checks and see you in about 7 minutes.